are you seeking closure? And, this came from a discussion, I think, in my group coaching membership. And this is something I really relate to, because this was something that was really hard for me, just trying to like let go and not seeking sort of that pound of flesh, I think is how I kind of see the closure issue. But I think that's really, really hard to let go of.
The longer you've been married, the worse this is, by the way.
Right.
Is that you tend to become one with your spouse. I know Tammy and I have been married for 12 years. And the other day I said to her, hey, let's go to Arby's. And she said, what's funny about that is I was just driving to Arby's. It's right over there. Let's go.
Yeah. And I was saying to him, like, I feel like, especially in the last year here or so, it's like we do that a lot more. Like, I'll be laying there and I'll be thinking something like totally random, like, oh, it's 2:00 in the afternoon and, it's really hot outside. I feel like going down to Sonic and getting a slush, and then all of a sudden Thomas will walk in the room and be like, hey, let's go get a slush, So it's really
almost
weird.
Scary.
Yeah, it is.
Right. But you had that too. If you're listening to this, if you're getting a divorce, you had that with your spouse, and there's a certain connection that's just, it's almost like it's always going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is in a certain way, unfortunately. if you're not thrilled with who your ex is at this point. But, when we're looking for that closure, it's like you're wanting some kind of resolution,
right,
or some kind of, something, and you're just not getting it, right. You're not getting that out of this process. This process is not very conducive to closure, because it's like this open-ended ongoing fight.
Yeah, the court's not going to order him to say he's sorry.
Right. Right. And he's probably not going to say it on his own. Everybody that goes through this process feels so, I don't know, I don't want to say cheated, that's not the right word, but feels so wronged. That's the word.
Yeah.
By the other person in various ways. And it's really, really hard to just try to let go of that and not be, and not get some kind of resolution to it. Like I said, we want like our pound of flesh so that we'll feel like it's fair or it's equal. We want to be vindicated. Yes, that's the word.
Right. And that feeling is a feeling. And I think that a lot of times the court has this idea that you can just change your feelings by judicial fiat. I had a judge tell,
or by sheer will.
I had a judge tell the father in the case I was handling, now, sir, you need to control your temper when you're with the children. You need to, and here's the thing, you're gonna get mad.
Right.
The human tendency, I mean, we live on a planet that's filled with war and chaos and conflict.
Right.
And the idea that human beings can just turn their emotions off is a false idea.
Right. But it's odd, because that is what the court expects, is this like business-like transaction that's devoid of the emotional part. And and when we're seeking closure, that's what we're seeking, is closure is an emotional thing.
Right.
We're seeking an emotional closure, and you don't get that out of the court, because the court's not there to bring you emotional closure. The court is there to resolve your case, make orders, and move on.
Right.
So you're dealing with all of this ongoing stuff, and you're not really going to get closure or resolution, especially if you're dealing with somebody that is a high conflict personality, because they're not going to give you the satisfaction.
Right. I had a high conflict personality, and on the other side, I think she'd probably admit that she was a high conflict personality if you asked her.
Yeah, and I think my ex has narcissistic tendencies, which I also think is, right, is part of it too. Is like he just won't give you the satisfaction.
But I have to say that in most ways, I do have closure.
Right.
On my marriage that ended in divorce 15 years ago.
But how long did it take for that closure to come?
About 15 years.
Yeah. Hey, that's my point, is where they're sitting now, you're not going to get that. If
right.
you get it, it will be far down the road, and you may not ever. I've never gotten it.
Right.
I have never gotten it. The key to this whole thing is
True.
You're not going to get closure through, seeking your pound of flesh from the other person, or right. All of that kind of thing. It's going to be short-term gratification at best, but it's still going to leave you with the emotional hole that takes time to heal. And the only way to change that is to move on. Right. That's your best strategy. And I always say to people, like, I'm not telling you that moving on is getting remarried. Like having a partner was a big thing for us, but that's not the key to it. Just moving right. on with your life, whatever you want that to be, having a bond with your kids, building the career that you want, having a mate if you want that, living right. where you want. The resentment will eat you alive.
Right.
And that's just not good for anybody. So, and that's what the seeking closure is about. It's about, like, you're having this resentment, you're having all these feelings, and it's sort of like our intuitive way of getting rid of it is like seeking that pound of flesh from the other person. That's sort of
right.
our human nature. That's our default.
And seeking a judicial decree of
yes.
fault.
Right. Well, the pound of flesh can come through the court or come through verbal or come right. however it comes, as long as it comes,
But I honestly feel like that's what people are looking for in litigation.
It is. So we're looking for that pound of flesh to come through the judicial system. And it's so unsatisfactory. Like, you right. still, people think they're going to get closure by winning in court, but I'm telling you, almost every case we have, the win is sort of it's like you get part of it but not the other part. They have just this way of kind of like, you get part of what you're asking for but not all of it. Some of it will go in your favor, some will go in the other person's favor, and you walk out of the courtroom thinking, really, that's it? You need to move on. That's where the win is, in moving on, not in seeking closure. Because again, like we talked about last time, negativity versus positivity. Seeking closure is pursuing this process in a negative way, and letting go and moving on with your life is moving through this process in a positive way.
Right. And I think people get trapped in the litigation because they want that declaration of fault, and they don't want to let go. There's no justice in family law. There really isn't. Right.
And that's, I think, the piece that people are looking for, and it really doesn't exist. So the way you win is by moving on with your own life.
Right, right.
So
the best revenge is living well.
Like that. All right. So thanks for joining us. If you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below to be notified of when more videos come out. Also hit the like button on this episode if you like this video, so that we know to produce more content like this. If you are listening to our podcast.
What if they hate this video?
Well, then just
tell us that too.
Keep scrolling.
And then we won't do this one anymore.
keep scrolling if you hate it, I guess. If you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to rate or review us in iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're listening to us at. It helps more people find us, and we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon.